Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt. I'm a messenger with United Network News. We are the official news channel for CARE, the Center for Amity and Restoration of Earth. And we're here to discuss the real news. What's really happening locally in our communities, what's happening in our states or our regions, what's happening in the world, and even beyond that, what's happening in the universe, the multiverse, what's really going down. Because if you know what's going on, then it helps you to make certain decisions in your life. And you guys have a lot of decisions to make right now. You can go the fear-mongering route, which is what you see displayed on mainstream media and even alternative media. Right now, you're not seeing much news from either of those sources right now. They are just saying the same things over and over again, and it's kind of boring. Have you noticed? Well, things are never boring at UNN. We are always giving you exactly what's happening. And some of the stuff is kind of hard to believe because we've been lied to for so long about pretty much everything. So when you give people these big truth bombs, it's sometimes hard to relate to. That's actually something that the news team that we have been discussing internally. You know, how do we get this information out to people without them thinking that we're crazy, right? Because when the truth is so much different than your reality, it's that cognitive dissonance that happens, right? Where you're like, there's no way that could be true because other people would know. And, you know, no one wants to think that they have been deceived their entire life, right? That's a hard truth. But we're here to give you guys the news as it really is. And the more you listen or watch our newscasts that come out 3 times a week, then the more clued in you will be on what's actually going on. Because this is your world. And I believe you're here now for a very specific reason. You're here to make a difference. If you're listening to this podcast right now, you are here. I believe you're part of the restoration plan. Something guided you here. Maybe it's the first time that you've ever tuned in to anything related to UNN, or maybe you watch our newscasts all the time. Doesn't really matter. You're here. You're here. And you're part of where our planet is going. If you want more information on who we are and what we do, you can visit our website at unitednetwork.earth. What this podcast is all about is going over some of the top stories that we discussed last year on our 3 different episodes, newscasts, whatever you want to call it. Kim and I were talking today, and we're like, we don't like the word newscast or broadcast. I mean, that casting is casting a spell on people. And I believe news is changing. We don't have to cast spells on people in order to give them information. You guys are sovereign beings, and you should be able to take the information and consume it however you want. So we are actually discussing some ways that we might be able to change up the news to fit the golden age. What does that look like? What does news look like in a golden age? Are we encouraging people just to sit down and, consume a large amount of content and we just feed you guys information? I'm not so sure. You guys are smart. I think you can pick and choose what kind of content you want to listen to or watch. And we're trying to figure out the best format for that. So that's kind of a little preview. We've been, the admin team, for the news, we've been discussing this over the last week plus. We'll continue to discuss it. But here on this podcast, we're about giving you the top stories. So if you missed something, then this is a great episode to listen to. Sometimes it's hard to go back. I think Friday's episode was over 2 hours. It was like maybe close to 2 hours and 20 minutes, 2 hours and 30 minutes. So if you miss something, sometimes it doesn't really fit in your schedule to go back and watch it. Or maybe you just don't have time. You got other things going on in your life. So this is a great way to catch up on that content. Also, if you're interested in sharing our content with other people, this podcast is a great tool for that as well. Because when our content first comes out, it is only available on our app. And then about a week later, we do release it. But you never know, who's going to, give us a strike for something. Because we talk about stuff that, the deep state doesn't really like. And considering the deep state owns social media and YouTube and all these big resources that we have come to rely on, it is a little bit challenging. With all the information we give you, we encourage you guys to always think critically. We actually talked about this on the World Situation Report on Friday. And that's that, you have a lot of information coming at you. You have to use discernment to know, is this propaganda? Is this someone just trying to spread some narrative? You have this internal lie detector, again, which is your discernment. Because when someone is lying to you, it is a frequency, just like truth is a frequency. And it's a great, asset for us to have as humanity. So the more we tune into that, the more we're going to recognize that frequency. So if you see someone or hear someone saying something, especially if they happen to be on TV, apply some discernment. See if you can figure out what the truth might be. Of course, we're here to give you the truth. Sometimes it's a tough truth. Sometimes we say things that maybe you may not want to hear. I know we've got, some feedback this week on some of our topics that we're like, what? And we love hearing from you guys. So thank you for that. But we're still going to give it to you as real as possible and as honest and as authentic as possible. So let's talk about what we're going to discuss in this episode. So coming up, we have our field messenger reports. And these reports this week come from Mexico, the United States, Uganda, Ireland, Australia, and Romania. We really got around the world this week. In the New Earth, we're talking about communicating with wildlife, specifically to avoid confrontation. So yes, you have the ability as a human to connect with wildlife on a level that would just blow your mind. Think of all the conflicts that we've had with animals in the past. What if you could have that kind of connection with an animal to avoid, issues with animals, things that, really could have been prevented? Well, there is a way to do that. We're also going to focus on mindfulness. What does it mean to be mindful? And how can we encourage our children to be more mindful? And I'm going to tell you about a program that is designed to do this in schools. Believe it or not, even public schools are doing this, which is kind of cool. We're also going to interact with water and the different forms of water, right? So you have a liquid form of water, you've got steam, you've got, water as a solid, and there's different ways to communicate with water in these different states and different forms of consciousness. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. In our regional news, I've got a handful of stories for us, just a few of them, just to kind of go over real quickly. In South Africa, their post office is on the brink of collapse. I'm going to tell you more about that. The U.S. is talking about changing some pedestrian rules when it comes to your car, and they're not just going to make pedestrians do different things, but they're talking about changing the functionality of cars, making some new rules, if you will, to make sure that pedestrians are more safe if there is some sort of collision. So we'll talk about that. And then in Finland, they are kind of doing the opposite of what I find so many people doing here in the U.S., which is for their students, they were very tech-friendly, very forward-thinking in that capacity. And now they're kind of looking at kids attached to their screens and going, is this really what we should be doing? Maybe we should go back to good old paper and pen. And there's some, they're making some moves in that direction. In our world situation report, we are going to give you an update on 9/9/24. This was supposed to be a really big date. The deep state was gearing up for it. Oh, everything's going to change. Did everything change for the deep state? You probably know the answer to that, but we're going to give you an update on that and what actually happened. Kim actually wasn't on the news on Wednesday. That was September 11th, and they had a bunch of shenanigans. So she came back with us on Friday, and we talked a little bit about constitutions, because there's a lot of chatter online about constitutions and backing the Constitution, the authentic Constitution of the United States. Well, do people really know what that means? Because the truth is, we were actually under a bunch of constitutions, most of which people aren't even aware of. So we get a little bit of a history lesson today. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Today is September 14th, 2024. It's Saturday. Here is the rundown of stories you may have missed this week on UNN. Let's talk about our field messengers, which are the heart and soul of what UNN is all about. We don't have correspondents that go out and dictate what's happening in your community. How annoying would it be, and this happens all the time with mainstream media, to have some correspondent come in that's from New York, LA, whatever, and try to piece together this story about your town. We don't think that's the best way to tell a story. We also know that mainstream media has their own agenda, regardless of the intention of the reporters. Maybe they have honest intentions, but by the time that story gets to air, it is been passed through many different hands, and I promise you, it is not going to get to a network level unless it has been approved by people that probably shouldn't be approving our content, people that have other agendas. So why don't we ixnay all of that and have the reports come directly from the people? You care about what's happening in your community. And if it's not so good and you want it to change, then the best way to do that is to raise awareness about that. Because we are now in a stage of restoration for this planet. And we have to call things out. We've got to figure out solutions, money or no money. The intention has to be there. And so we want to know what's going on. If you want more information about how to become a field messenger, go to our website, unitednetwork.earth, and you'll see a bunch of information about field messenger reports. And that's also how you submit reports to us, which, by the way, you don't have to know anything about, creating an actual news report. You send us your content, and we've got a production team that puts everything together for you. We just want you to share what's going on, and we'll help you with the rest. So let's go over our reports for this week. We usually have 2 on each newscast. So on Monday, Abril from Mexico gives us a story out of Cancun about how there's 2 architects there who are, I believe, going above and beyond. They are working to improve neglected areas with their modern tropical urban designs. And Abril talks to them and, learns a little bit more about their project and how they're making a positive difference in the community. And it's really cool to see, right? Again, 2 people doing this on their own. No one handed them a paycheck. They just said, you know what? Things need to change in these areas. And we know a little bit about architecture and what makes for good design aesthetically. And we're going to change Cancun. That's how easy it is, guys. Also on Monday, Adaria from Montana, which is in the United States, she takes us to this area called Darby. It's a city, a smaller city, and they are honoring the service of veterans. They have one of the largest memorials in the region, and Adaria shows us this memorial. It is a powerful symbol of gratitude for the whole community, and it's lovely. And we should remember the people that have stood up for us. We can say a lot about the military and how at the top level, they have intentions that are not for the betterment of humanity, but there's a lot of really good souls that just want to help their country. And I'm talking about militaries around the world, not just the U.S. So those are the good people. They were kind of sold a bad bill of goods, if you will, but they still deserve our respect. And a lot of people have been through a lot. I've got people in my family that are veterans, and trust me, I see it. I see, the danger that they went through, and they still wear it on their face. So we appreciate our veterans. On Wednesday, we had a couple of stories. So Diane out of Uganda, I believe she's in eastern Uganda. She shows us the Rotary Club of Jinja, I believe it's pronounced. They are actively promoting awareness for their upcoming fun run event. And this is an event that aims to raise funds for the Jinja Hospital Cancer Department. So she tells us all about this annual initiative and what they're doing and how they're, raising money for this. And just a fun community event. Ocean from Ireland. He takes us to the Emerald Awakening 2024 event. It's at the Hill of Tara in Ireland. And this took place, I believe, during the Lionsgate portal, which if you follow UNN, you know that his story, I mean, that's a powerful time, Lionsgate, and it's not just on 8/8, although a lot of people associate 8/8, August 8th, with Lionsgate. It's actually a longer period of time, and it was primarily used for the dark in the past. But since the dark is going away, it has now become this beautiful, bright light for all organic beings. So sources basically flip the switch. So it's a beautiful thing. And what Ocean shows, I love his name, by the way, Ocean. That just sounds amazing. So what Ocean is showing us is this group of people, and they go to this hill area. It's like, I think it kind of looks like two circles combined. And I was really surprised by how many people went to this spot. But their whole idea was to bring in this positive energy that was generated through Lionsgate, and to, live in abundance, to awaken, the spiritual minds of other people. So a beautiful event that Ocean shows us. Then on Friday, we had a couple of stories. So Leanne and Jerry from Australia, they take us to this garden, a market garden in Tamworth, New South Wales, because it is growing a ton of organic vegetables. And then they're using that locally in their cafes, then, their restaurants, and they're really committed to sustainable farming practices. So we love to show you these examples, right? It may seem like a tough thing to grow a garden. You may think you have to grow everything. That's not the case. There's a lot that communities can do. And we don't really know yet where things are going with how the deep state reacts to stuff. They're still waiting for these crazy alignments and, crazy dates, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. And there's a good chance that we're not going to have government. And I don't think that's a scary thing, because government really hasn't been doing anything for us. I'm talking about federal governments, by the way, not just the U.S., around the world. So you have to think about, what are we going to do if certain things go away? Not from a place of fear, but to be informed. And it's possible that humanity is going to have to figure this out. So this is why we run stories like this. So thank you, Leanne and Jerry. And then finally on Friday, Monica from Romania takes us to the Felix Baths Resort in Romania. They have a special lake filled with rare lotuses and water lilies that are grown in warm thermal waters. I'm telling you, I have never seen lotuses and water lilies that look this big and beautiful. It is a natural wonder for sure. So be sure to check out that report as well. In the new earth. So this is one of my favorite portions of the newscast, because this gets me excited. Where is our planet going? And let's talk about what humanity is already doing, because you're not probably going to get this in mainstream media, right? It's all the gloom and doom. That's what all the channels are. If it bleeds, it leads, right? Well, there's so much more happening on this planet, but they're trying to control the narrative. So, whatever they put out in mainstream, isn't going to have that kind of vibe or feel to it. But in our New Earth segment, we're trying to bring some of those stories out. So it always starts with a short interview that I do with various people, and I invite people back on the news to kind of share their expertise with us. And, I love talking about our superhuman gifts and our abilities and how we can interact with our planet in beautiful ways. So let's first talk about those interviews. On Monday, we had Kara Daniels on the news. She is an interspecies communicator, which is fabulous. We have already talked a little bit about our abilities to do different things like connect with animals, right? And I love this concept, and it's a very real thing. Kara tells us about communicating with wildlife, which I'm sure we've all had some sort of run-in, right? And when I say wildlife, I'm not talking, it doesn't have to be like a big tiger or bear or something like that. It can be anything that's outside typically and then finds its way on the inside of your house. And you're like, I don't really want this on the inside of my house. How do I get this on the outside? Well, we're kind of trained to like stomp it out, right? Or do something kind of drastic or what's the word? Violent, right? Something violent to get it out of the house. This is one of the things I'm constantly telling my kids. I'm like, do you really need to kill that spider? Yes, that spider is in an area. Maybe it scared you. Or there was a cockroach. It was a cockroach the other day that was in our house. And I actually saw the cockroach earlier. And I'll just tell you what happened. So it was on its back and I wasn't sure if it was dead or not. So I went over and touched it and then its legs went everywhere. And so I flipped it over and then he just scurried, or is that the word? Scurried away. And I was like, okay, well, he's not hurting me, whatever. Well, my kids found it later in the day and freaked out. And then my husband went over and stomped on it. And I was like, oh, I guess I should have said, which I did not say to this little guy, can you go somewhere else? And I have had these conversations with animals. And this is what Kara talks about. She's like, you do have the ability to talk to them. And many times they will listen. I mean, I know this may sound crazy to a lot of you, but I mean, it's a very real thing. It is, you're probably not going to audibly hear words, but there is telepathic communication that happens. And the more we experience this and trust in this ability of ours, the more we can avoid these uncomfortable confrontations moving forward. So that's what that interview is about. And then on Wednesday, we have Corinne Winter. She is the CEO of an organization called Mission B. And I love this. So Corinne comes from the school system, and she has this company now, although it is a nonprofit, that focuses on mindfulness for children. So they've got information on their website, which you can check out. Just Google or, use your search engine to look for Mission B, B-E. Her group goes into schools and they teach mindfulness. And it's usually paid for through different grants and things like that, but they will have meditation for the kids that is age appropriate, right? Because no one's going to, just sit there and close their eyes. I mean, you got to make it fun. But then there's also lessons that go with it. And it's about teaching kids tools, giving them tools to help them overcome when things get really crazy. You want to be more present, more mindful. And if you're put into stress mode, which kids constantly are, you're not usually being very mindful. So in this interview, we're talking about mindfulness and why it's important for kids and some of the results that she's seen as a result of getting involved with the schools and coming in and engaging directly with the children. And then our final interview is with Veda Austin. She is a water researcher and she is fabulous. You should go back and watch all the segments we've done with Veda because she was just someone that was curious and started testing different forms of water. And she started freezing water, but it was kind of at the brink of starting to freeze, not completely frozen. She has talked about how the relationship between water and consciousness. So in this interview, we're talking about the different forms of water and what she has seen because she's experimented with steam and all this other kind of stuff. But what has it told her about consciousness? So that's a really good interview to check out. All right, here are some New Earth stories that we reviewed this week on the news. The sustainable harvesting of sphagnum moss in Peru is helping communities thrive. This versatile plant is used in horticulture, natural filters, and even medical applications. Local individuals can supplement their income through moss harvesting, which can be scheduled around their daily responsibilities. So it fits right in with their life, right? Many of the harvesters are women, creating a movement of empowerment within households and communities. This initiative shows how a business can support economic growth and help community welfare. Again, thinking outside the box. What can you do with the resources you have? Here it is, helping women. And it's moss, sphagnum moss. Who would have thought, right? Okay, there is a rising trend in the U.S., Europe, and Asia where classical music is played in public spaces to help reduce crime. The idea is simple. Playing classical music in places like subway stations and parking lots, it creates this atmosphere that deters unwanted behavior, including things like loitering and vandalism. The approach is proving effective in big cities, with the Transit Authority reporting a significant drop in crime and vandalism in subway stations. The music's calming And high-frequency tones, well, it seems to repel individuals with disruptive intentions, right? Maybe we don't have to get violent with people. Maybe it's about putting on some classical music. Let's start thinking outside the box here, right? And then in drought-stricken southern India, innovative water dispensing machines are providing a lifeline for communities. For under 10 US cents, locals can swipe a card and receive 20 liters of clean drinking water. These machines are being set up by local entrepreneurs, many of which are women. See, there's a theme, women entrepreneurs in these stories. With an initial investment of $2,400 US, the stations can each serve up to 350 families, creating a sustainable public service business. And I have some regional news for you guys. So I tried to pick some stuff all over the world. These are bigger stories, but more interesting stories. I know there is a lot of stuff going on in the world, and it feels like a huge responsibility to be like, what's happening in the world? Just like, give them a quick update. So these are the ones that you're probably not going to see in other places that give us an idea of how our world is changing. The South African Postal Service is on the brink of collapse. Now, we've talked about things collapsing in the past, especially government-run institutions collapsing because they don't have any money. And we're starting to see this play out in the news. Without urgent financial support, this service could shut down, leading to job losses and disrupted essential mail deliveries in South Africa. Trade unions have criticized the handling of this crisis, arguing that layoffs have weakened the organization, leaving it incapable of fulfilling its duties, right? We've heard this across the board. People get laid off, and then other people get those responsibilities, other colleagues, and it just creates a bad working environment. They say rural areas rely on this postal service for various needs, such as accessing government services and renewing important documents. So we may see more of this stuff start to go under. Starting to see that play out in the news. Next, the Chinese government says it will no longer process over-the-seas adoptions. This is a decision impacting many American families. Now, they say the only exception to this rule will allow for the adoption of a blood relative or the adoption of stepchildren. Historically, the United States has adopted the most children from China with more than 82,000 adoptions. This is why this is impacting so many people who are trying to adopt children from China at this time. This announcement comes amid declining birth rates in China, marking a continued decrease in the overall population for a second consecutive year. Nigeria is taking stronger action against fake university degrees in an effort to protect its education system. Earlier this year, the government stopped recognizing degrees from some colleges in the areas of Benin and Togo, and now they have added schools in Kenya, Uganda, and Ghana to the list. The education minister is calling for a thorough review to eliminate fake certifications and to help protect employers. The government found more than 21,600 graduates with fake degrees, highlighting the need for reform and international cooperation to help solve this problem. In the U.S., they are planning to make the roads safer for pedestrians by introducing new vehicle design rules. Who's doing this? The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. They are setting requirements to test vehicles and reduce pedestrian injuries, mainly from larger SUVs and trucks. These proposed regulations are aiming to ensure vehicles include features to protect both the drivers and pedestrians. There has been an increase in pedestrian deaths in the U.S. during the past decade, emphasizing the possible need for change. Now, the public can comment on this proposal for 60 days before any final rules are set. In Indonesia, they are planning to stop building hotels, villas, and nightclubs in several busy areas of Bali. And the reason they're doing this, they say, is to prevent overdevelopment. The move aims to improve the quality of tourism and protect their unique culture. Overcrowding has become a major issue with about 200,000 foreigners living on the island, which has led to increased crime and job competition. Now, the timeline for this measure is still being discussed, but some people say they could go back and forth on this for 10 years. Wow. And our final story in regional news, a small Finnish town is doing something a little bit different. You hear all these schools wanting to increase technology. Well, students in this small Finnish town are setting aside their digital devices in favor of books and their backpacks. For many years, schools across Finland have been known for their innovative teaching methods. They've even offered free laptops to students as young as 11 years old. However, this town has opted for a change due to growing concerns amongst parents and educators about the impact of screen time on children. This shift away from screens has shown promising results, with students noticing improved concentration and reduced eye strain. Now, I'm a parent, and I will be very honest. There are many times in my life that I have handed my child some sort of electronic device in order to finish doing something, okay? Most of us are guilty of this on some level. And the more we realize this behavior, I think more people are starting to be like, is that really a good thing? Maybe my kid should get out, enjoy the sun a little bit. The more we start to return to the natural way of living, not that tech is bad. I don't think tech is bad, but too much of it can really detract from just living, right? No one should be just connected to an electronic device. There's so many other interesting things to explore. We live on this beautiful planet, and you're going to start to see more and more people taking a second look at this and going, maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe we're going to skip technology for the day. Maybe we're all going to put our phones down at dinner. Whatever it is, it's going to start out small. But we're seeing more and more people take a step back from technology and in a respectful way and realize there is more to life. Look up, guys, instead of down at your phone. All right, let's talk about what happened this week on the World Situation Report. We have Kimberly Gogan from the Office of the Guardian. She comes on the news as much as possible and gives us an update. Kim was not on the news with me on Monday, but she did record something that I'm going to play a soundbite here in just a second. Wednesday was September 11th. That was kind of a crazy day for her because, the deep state loves their rituals. And so since they were able to do something horrible to humanity on September 11th, many, many years ago, they want to, gear up on that day and try some other stuff. And then Kim and I were live together on Friday. So I've got a couple of sound bites for you guys, one from Monday and one from Friday. So starting with Monday, this was a big day. So this was September 9th of 2024. And we have been talking about this on the World Situation Reports prior. This was supposed to be a big day for the deep state, because they're always going to get their technology back. They're always going to get Omega back, which they used for a very long time. Not just them, but their overlords and people you never knew about in the past would use this to control humanity and do horrible things to us, which we're not going to focus on, but it was a very real thing. Now, a lot of their toys have been taken away, and they're kind of acting like toddlers right now, crying about their stuff. So 9/9 was supposed to be this big day, and Kim figured out why this was such a big day. Well, as it turns out, you guys have probably heard of King Solomon from the Bible, probably from other religious texts as well. We have said that Solomon had Kim's job at one point. The Office of the Guardian is not a new role. Kim did not make up this role. Other people and beings have had this role in the past. And King Solomon was one of those people. Now, he did not make, in my opinion, very smart judgments while he was on this planet. And I don't know if the Bible really goes into it too much. I think it has like one line or something and says, and then Solomon, chose the side of demons and God left him. And that indeed is what happened. And 9/9, I don't know what calendar they're looking at because Lord knows our calendar has changed multiple times, and how they got this date right, which I seriously doubt they even did, but let's just say they did, is very impressive, okay? Because our calendar has changed quite a bit since Solomon's time. But they believe that this was the day, 9/9 was the day, when Solomon was first permitted to open a gateway, which was in Israel, to let his beloved demons in. Isn't that lovely? So, obviously, if this thing happened however many thousands of years ago, maybe something could happen this 9/9/24. Maybe, kind of, sort of. So here's Kim explaining what the deep state was doing this day to hopefully, conjure up some demons?
Let's talk for a minute about this 9/9/2024. It's been touted all over various social media channels, Q clock channels, and it appears that they're all excited about this day for some reason. And I've been trying to figure out why today for quite a while. And I talked a little bit with some other people, and they say 9 represents this and 9 represents that, but finally came clear this morning as to what they were looking for. So apparently, every 1,000 or a few thousand years or so, there is a gate that they believe is going to open. Now, in our past, throughout history, this gate has been known for the last few thousand years anyway as Solomon's Gate. And it's known as Solomon's Gate is because a few calendars ago, this was the day that Solomon first, I guess you would say, was permitted, because I'm going to use the word permitted, to open a gateway over in Israel to allow his demons in. There are lots of books out there, such as the Testaments of Solomon, I'm not speaking of the ones in the Bible, that talk about Solomon's Gate and him talking to all the demons and what can the demons offer him. Well, that happened on this day, apparently, for him. And so the deep state is looking for some demons. On the one side, their Order of the Dragon has decided to place what they believe is the chair of Solomon, apparently near the Mount of Olives, in a place called Gethsemane, which is also written about in the Bible. And for those of you that don't know, Gethsemane is allegedly the place where Jesus had prayed before he was crucified. So they believe that this is a perfect opportunity to put this chair in this location and to play a round of Pindar picking. Thus far, at the time of this recording, there has been about 178 people that have sat in that chair in hopes of their body being inhabited by a demon through a portal that no longer exists there and a gateway that no longer exists. And so they would like to have a demon crawl up into somebody's body who they believe is qualified for whatever reason or another. This will then give them the power and I guess some access or some control of an AI system that also really doesn't exist anymore, called Omega. It is limping on its last legs, but this kind of goes along with the theme, for these people of very little information is dangerous. There was a little bit of an uptick in the Middle East over the last couple of days, some more war activity, I guess you would say, in hopes of raising the interest of some demons that will come back to Earth. And of course, then we would be flooded with demons, and They would all be inhabiting, of course, their chosen ones' bodies, apparently, and all will be right with the world from that point on for them. That's what they think. In reality, what this would have done in the past was that Omega would have generated some pseudo demons because they're AI generated, and they would have inserted them, or Omega would have inserted them into our holographic world. Now, in order to have achieved this task, they would have had to have what I call level 9 authority. So they know the deep state has limited knowledge of level 9, as we've talked about in the past. And the level 9 authority could have only come from a cooperative effort between anti-source and Omega, which would have then allowed for these things to happen. Well, we don't have an anti-source anymore. We barely have an Omega that doesn't have any power really as it relates to bringing things through into our world where we live from whence it came. And that portal doesn't actually exist anymore. So there's going to be a lot of disappointment and a lot of disappointed people when they find this out. Now, disappointed people. Let's talk about disappointed people. So apparently, on the new moon, which occurred a few days ago, on the new moon, the Order of the Dragon had made a lot of lofty promises based on the fact that their meetings were due to start, on the new moon, and that within 3 days of that new moon, they would, of course, get some orders and instructions. God knows where they were waiting for them from. And, of course, along with that would come a lot of money. Now, since that didn't happen, that angered a lot of people. A lot of governments were angry. So the party that then started wheeling and dealing around the world would be what's left of the Order of the Black Dragon, based out of Japan. So the Order of the Black Dragon has been wheeling and dealing and said behind the scenes is what they're talking about, is that they should be the ones to control the demons that are going to come through this gateway. And they have been planning an operation. I'm sorry, I can't help but laugh. They have been planning an operation to steal control of the gate once it opens. So there's a big fight, whether these people know it. I don't know which side, depending on which side, whether you're on the golden booty side, sitting in a Solomon's chair trying to get control of demons, or you are on the Black Dragon side in Japan, and their side of stealing the gate and getting control of the demons. But both sides are going to be very disappointed come midnight Eastern Standard Time today when they figure out that there is no gate and there was nothing to be had there. And then they're probably going to roll on to another day. I mean, why not, right? We have a full moon yet to come, a harvest moon here. We also have the equinox coming up on the 22nd Eastern Time. There's always a day ending in Y where they can go around in another circle. But it appears that the Japanese Black Dragon has been quite busy in his negotiations. There are deals going on with the Chinese government, where if the Chinese government can throw out the Order of the Dragon from there and their influence, aka the Rothschild family and the Li family, then they would be willing to help China with their BRICS currency, which of course, once they get a hold of the gate and all of that. So, since they're now going to be in power and control of all these demons, then they believe that they will have control over the financial system or Omega, or Omega's coming back. Who knows what their ancient texts say. But they do believe that they will now be in control. And so they've been wheeling and dealing for the last several days with many different countries, China being one. So for China's cooperation and kicking out the Order of the Black Dragon, then they will go ahead and help them launch the BRICS currency with their AI that doesn't exist. They also believe that they will now be in power. And they have also been negotiating with a group I call the Nazi Party here in America. You would know them as the Trump team, the Republican Party, operatives from the secret space program that are on that side. So anybody left from Umbrella or Monarch, and they keep promoting themselves to different divisions. So who knows who is with what these days. They apparently have agreed behind the scenes in the last few days to a 60-40 split of control of the United States dollar. Now, this apparently has angered a number of people because they would like to be in 100% control. But apparently Team Trump has agreed to give up 60% control of the United States dollar. If they agree, and for their part, at their 40% control and share of the dollar, they agree to, number one, make sure that Trump gets into the White House. Number two, they also have to agree that the dollar would remain the world's trade currency, and that they would run several operations against BRICS behind the scenes, while negotiating with the BRICS folks at the same time, in order to ensure the dollar's dominance in the world. So they agreed. They would, of course, love to own 40% of the financial system of the world. Ego is a terrible thing. And therefore, they've been selling off pieces of America everywhere. It's really not their country to sell, but why not? Now, the Treasury Department is obviously in on this. Treasury Department, as you know, is a Black Sun, Black Dragon run organization. And they are collecting, and they have gone to places. I've gotten phone calls from Iran, Iraq. I've gotten phone calls from the Philippines, Indonesia, a couple of countries throughout the African continent as well, that currently hold supernotes. And just a quick reminder, a supernote is where they take an allocation number and they print several notes with the same allocation number. Now, when you do that, the financial system will not allow the duplicates into the system. So all of these different parties that hold all these supernotes have been trying to cash them for years. The American generals that are involved in that would be Admiral Fogel, General Beasley, and a few others, and they call it Project Becky. I believe also General Darden is involved and some others, and you can look up these lovely gentlemen's names. And so they believe that there's somewhere around, 20 to 40 trillion dollars worth of supernotes that have been placed around the world, and that they would agree to cash them in for the new United States dollar. Okay, so they also agree, apparently, this Black Dragon folk agree that they're going to issue a new United States dollar. Now, they must be listening to our broadcast because they have come to the realization if they are going to have a new United States dollar, it can't be just solely digital, that they would have to also have a physical currency in order to achieve this task. So on that note, they have been working together with some folks to get some printing plates so that they can take over printing from the Federal Reserve of the United States dollar. Now, remember, the Federal Reserve is the Order of the Dragon. So the Order of the Dragon and this Black Dragon folk here are at odds with each other at the moment. for world domination. But there are a lot of rumors that are being created because of this, some of them in the alternative media and some of them in the mainstream media. So I'd like to take a moment and talk about those, because now you understand the backstory behind all of the rest of the information that is being flooded out toward you. Number one, there'll be a market crash. Number two, the emergency broadcasting system is going to go off. Number three, we will have martial law by tomorrow morning. Number four, I'm sorry, I can't help but laugh because this is funny to me. This is all very funny to me. There'll be Nasara Jasara is about to start. The global currency reset is going to happen. And these are all the things that they're promising everyone. Well, and not to say that I'm against people having some kind of income or anything if they were really going to pay you. Now, remember and keep in mind, these people are the same people that were in control or ran security for the financial system for the last, since its inception. So, maybe a century or more since the world started using some kind of currency, be it coins on a string or, gold going back and forth from boat to boat, place to place, via the Templars and the receipts they used to hand out, or physical currency, and then eventually it's just papers and fiat nowadays. So as far as these rumors are concerned, I anticipate by this evening, midnight or so, they'll still be looking for the gate. Possibly for the next, day or two, who knows, until they finally resolve to the fact that there is no gate, and they'll move on to the next date, of course. The one thing that this does is it allows, another face. So the Black Sun and the Black nobility in Italy, has been kind of towing the line for a while now, and they've failed several times as well. And so has the quote unquote Nazi party is what I'm calling them, because this appears like an Axis powers kind of thing. The Japanese and the Nazis won the war, took over America. I don't know. That's what this whole thing looks like from behind the scenes. But without any kind of an Omega access, their blockchain is not going to cut it. They can't create a currency with blockchain. The Japanese do have some other technologies that they think could work. There's no way in God's green earth that those supercomputers are going to fly. Matter of fact, they've been glitching all day. They pretty much know that the connections are not being established anymore. And they've been working really hard at it. So, God bless them. However, you've all been lied to. That's the bottom line. The deep state has been lied to. But you're seeing some interesting things come out in mainstream media as well. Number one, a launch of BRICS currency and a move away from the dollar. And at least that's what they've promised to countries like Saudi Arabia and Iran. But in this particular deal, there would still be a dollar, and they've been invited to join this new currency issuance that allegedly the Black Dragon, also known as the Yakuza, is going to issue. However, this is the same deep state, different color, different face, different country, but they don't have the capacity to issue this. And I know that, there's old text from the Japanese emperor that states in 1,000 years they'll be in control and you'll get your vengeance and, so on and so forth. And, Axis powers really won the war and we're in the wrong timeline. I don't know. But this also will fail.
That's something the deep state is really good at. They're not really good at missions and running different operations and things like that. They're good at failing. I mean, they pretty much do that every single time. As I mentioned on Wednesday, Kim wasn't on the news. That was September 11th. A lot of stuff was going down. Then she joined us on Friday, and Kim and I were able to do the news together on Friday. And she gave us an update. She said that there is a meeting that is supposed to take place this weekend on Sunday. So I'm recording this on Saturday, so this would be tomorrow. And it's with several deep state groups, and they want to discuss what governments could look like moving forward. Which, if they want our input on that, governments don't look like anything moving forward because you guys haven't showed any interest in wanting to do anything positive for humanity. And considering that's what we're all about, we don't really think that you are useful at all. So apparently they still want to meet and discuss this, though. So what Kim did on Friday is we had a pretty lengthy conversation about constitutions. Now, if you have spent any time in the alt media, you are going to hear people talk about constitutions and returning to constitutional law. And I think that there is even a orange guy that talks about that quite a bit. Well, you really need to know the history of constitutions, not just constitutions of your country or state, but the planet's constitutions, humanity constitutions they never told you anything about. So before you start going off online about we want to follow the original constitution, you need to know what the original constitution is, because remember, the universe is listening to you. So if you say, this is what I want, it's not thinking, does Sunny really know what that is? No, it's going to try to give you what you want. This is how the universe works. This is why if you are constantly watching fear-based any propaganda online, that kind of fear is going to perpetuate in your life. And those things are going to become your reality because you are telling the universe that that is what you want. So if you're telling the universe that you want to follow the original constitution, you better know what that entails. And it is very detailed. So here's Kim to explain what the original constitution and other constitutions after that were all about.
Now let's talk about constitutions. I think this is important because it appears that a lot of our viewers would like to return to the original constitution. So when they say that, their consciousness permeates throughout the multiverse, and they believe that a certain proportion of people would like to do that we need to uphold the Constitution. There's also a lot of people out there talking about election fraud. And I've been hearing it for a long time. So I just thought it was a good day, based on the fact that there's a meeting coming up on Sunday, to kind of talk a little bit about government, because I think these people might not be aware of what they would like to continue on with. And maybe they are. Okay. So the first Constitution of the United States falls under an old agreement of, I guess you would call it, the Constitution of the planet. So the first Constitution that everybody falls under, every nation in the world, has to do with the world governance of planet Earth. And it fell right in line and in lockstep with global martial law. This particular Constitution is 16,000 years old. So you can go back through the Bible, you can talk about Adam and Eve, you can talk about things you know in your history, and you are thinking that they are having a USSR turnover, for example. World War II happens, then the Cold War, countries change governments, turn to democracy. Whatever it is you're looking at, that is not what rules you in any way, shape, or form. So a continuance of that government, unfortunately, is not possible, because those beings which made up that government, and there were 6 different races that participated in the governance of Earth for approximately 250,000 years, they don't exist. So I can assume when you say you'd like to have a continuance of government, you are not referring to these people now, or non-people. I know that there has been some talk between some folks within the SSP, or Secret Space Program operatives, who feel that they are qualified because a lot of these groups have been around for 5,000 or more years. Believe it or not, we have had the secret space program on Earth long before we had governments, as you know them today. They have participated on behalf of what you would consider global governance. They have worked with these people. They do have a lot of information that most militaries and governments do not have. They are aware of the fact that they used to go to certain places on Earth and have meetings with beings that do not look like you or I. They feel, because they reported to these beings, that they are superior. They know more about the way the world works than the rest of you. Well, over the last 3 years of watching UNN and back in the day, Life Force meetings and everything else, you have learned an awful lot about how the world really works. There are some things I don't say because I don't want to help our non-friends. But I have to get the world to a point where our non-friends can have nothing left to act with. Okay, so do they believe that they should be the new third, I guess you would say, or first, if you want to put it in line that way, constitutional government? The answer to the question is yes, they do.
The SSP you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. They feel that by supporting a member of the von Kempf family, which is one of the high-ranking bloodlines in the Order of the Black Dragon or Black Sun, that should be sufficient enough to appease beings that no longer exist. Or because of their knowledge, that's right. So this is what you're watching play out in front of your face. So they feel that they are qualified to run the world. So let's talk about Constitution number 2. Constitution number 2 talks more about humans and world government, meaning it would talk about groups like the Covens, the Coven Masters, Family Masters, and the Order of the Dragon and the Order of the Black Sun, and their continuation and control over governments worldwide. These are the people that the remaining folks kind of know who they are. They probably have seen them. They've probably seen a lot of SSP operatives too. The SSP operatives would have been at this level in the past. They were not considered part of the global governance that existed before, yet they were the tier down. Therefore, underneath this, you have multiple constitutions. You have one that controls military and intelligence agencies worldwide. So when you say the U.S. military is going to save the United States, you are incorrect. Number one, they are not part of the United States government. No, they are not. They fall under the governance of militaries and agencies worldwide. They are not part of here to protect U.S. citizens. That's not part of their original constitution. They are reporting right now to the arm of the second constitution holders known as the Blue Dragon, and they have since 1864. So this is not new. Matter of fact, before that, it was you could say that there was another tier when it came to the U.S. Involving the King or Queen of England before that time, before 1864. So we just went from the Queen or official crown, I guess you would say, of England, over to the Crown Corporation known as the Rothschild family Etal. So we have technically been under the Blue Dragon family control for a long time. That is where our Democratic Party comes from, eventually on down the road. They make it out like there was Tea Party and taxes and all this stuff. None of that really mattered. That was just for the movie to make it look good, like you people were protesting against something that were alive at that time. Okay, next, there is also a constitution for control of the financial system of the world. This constitution has nothing to do with the United States government, nor does it have to do with the Federal Reserve. Believe it or not, we're still not there yet. The Federal Reserve is a tool that was created 100 years ago and some change to control all currencies worldwide on behalf of Constitution number 2. Well, now we're on 3 or 4, aren't we? But the financial system of the world is controlled by the global governance, and then on down from that, you had the governance of the planet, and then you have the people we see on TV dancing around and talking about things. Next, we have a different constitution for control over governments under Constitution number 2. This is your political sector. These are the people that would control who gets into office, who's not in office, who would be best suited to be in office. And there are agreements in there where you bounce back and forth between red and blue. There are no other colors here, as far as they're concerned. The red and blue, folks, is a toss-up between the Order of the Black Sun and the red, or the Order of the Dragon and the blue. But either way, global governance controls them all. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't really make a difference who's in, how many terms people can serve, all that kind of stuff. That's in now the Constitution that most people can't wait to have, So the Constitution that you know about talks all about how the government is going to act. Well, there's a separate third Constitution level down. Now we're now in the next tier down. That the one that everybody talks about is we the people are going to elect these people, and here's how they're going to act, and here's what they can do, can't do, martial law, here's all the stuff, right? Then you have a financial constitution for the United States. The Treasury Department and the Federal Reserve are not part of the government. That's separate. That's a separate governance that falls under a separate section of the controllers and constitutional people and governance of the planet. Now you also have a separate military and agency, and this is every country. This is not just the United States. These 3 constitutions are the ones that people in alt media talk about. They just don't understand them. They think that one is for a corporation and one is the original one, which was not a corporation. That's what they say. Yeah. And in part, I can say, you may think that because the first constitution, or the first agreement, I should say, with governance was underneath a king or a queen. It wasn't necessarily, under a corporation known as Crown Corporation. Right. So I can see the fine line of what they're saying, but really when you go up one level of constitutions, it doesn't matter at that point. So my question is for the people that are holding this meeting this weekend, which government are you asking me about? Because that is my first question. Who are you asking me about? Which government are you referring to? I would like to know. You're probably starting to question those that would like to be in governance 2 and 1, because that's what I've heard. I've heard a lot of chatter that they gave them until Friday to perform. Otherwise, they're going to have to look at other solutions.
So we do not yet know what happened on Friday. Saturday now, the day after. We will get an update from Kim on Monday. There's other stuff that she wanted to discuss, and there's other stuff that she did discuss, so we just don't have time to get to now. So again, if you would like to hear the full World Situation Reports, I encourage you guys, you can either become a member, head on over to our website at unitednetwork.earth. There's a small fee. I think you can pay yearly or monthly, but it's a super small fee if you want to, get access to the content right away. Otherwise, you can wait a week and we publish our newscasts on YouTube and Rumble. So I know we gave you a lot of stuff, guys. I want to encourage you, though, despite what the deep state is doing and their crazy shenanigans and their meetings and their alignments with God knows what, it is up to you to be the light on this planet. You are a powerful manifester, and you can co-create with God Source, the Creator, to do incredible things. What world do you want to live in? That's what you should be manifesting. That's the content that you should be consuming. And if you like what we said today on the show, I encourage you guys to share this episode with somebody you care about, because we're trying to get the word out. Yeah, it can be a lot. If you've never heard this stuff before, especially if you've never ventured off into alternative media just to kind of dabble in that a little bit, your mind might be blown right now. But I believe there's a reason you're here. There's a reason you pushed play on this episode. The question for you is, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do now? This is The Rundown, and I'm Sunny Galt for United Network News, signing off.